Make sure to do your math very carefully in this homework, as any decimal place error will get you a wrong answer on my Pearson. We want to look at what percentage of all applicants were Asian. So all applicants is the total down here in the bottom right corner. The percent, or rather the number that were Asian, was 429 out of 12,031. We can go over to our calculator right now and enter this in. 429 divided by 1231 gives us the percent that were Asian. That was 34 point, and it wants it to one decimal place, 8%. Next, what percent of the students accepted were Asian? 167 students were accepted, and 57 of those were Asian. That is 57 out of 167. 34.1%. It's very important on these problems to make sure that you line up the right column. If we're looking at accepted, there was 167 accepted. The percent of Asians who were accepted. So now we're going into the Asian row right here. There are 429 Asians and 57 were accepted. That is 57 divided by 429. 13.3. This one will round up. 13.3%. The percent of all students who were accepted. So now 167 students were accepted out of 1231. So we can go over here and type in 167 divided by 1231, giving us 13.6. It rounds up once again. 13.6%. Make sure to follow your percentages very carefully, and it wants it to one decimal place on these problems. For this problem right here, we are looking at on what percent of days did it actually rain. We have 365 days total right here. And if you look, the columns are what actually happened. So on these 28 days it rained, and on these 6 days it rained. Now here's the key difference. Which days did they get the forecast correct? That would be on the 28 days, where it rained, it actually rained, and they forecasted rain. This is how it lines up. The forecast is over here on the left. So if you look at days that rain was forecasted, you will see it was forecasted on these 28 days and these 64 days right here. All these days rain was forecasted, but on these 64 days it did not actually rain. Follow down to see what it actually did, go over to see what they forecasted. So on what percent of days did it actually rain? That would be 28 plus 6 out of 365. 28 plus 6 out of 365. It actually rained on 9.31% of the days. That'd be 9.3. On what percent of days was rain predicted? So we go over here to the forecast and see 28 plus 64. And let's go ahead and enter that in. There were 28 days and another 64 that it was predicted to rain, and this was all out of the 365 total days. 25.2. What percent of the time was the forecast correct? Now only on the days when it actually rained and rain was forecasted was it correct, or on the days where it did not rain and rain was not forecasted. So that'd be 28 days were right because they predicted rain. Predicted rain is right across on the right, and it actually rained. That's going up and down. And then the 267 days is right because they forecasted no rain and it did not actually rain. 28 and 267, let's add them up. And then divide by 365. 80.8% of the time they were correct. Do you see any evidence of an association between whether their ability to predict the weather is more accurate based on the type of the weather? Don't worry about doing this. You don't need to write that all out. But let's look at this right here. Let's take a look at the graph here on the bottom right. This is the actual one right here. Because what we can do is we can enter into our calculator 28 divided by 34. And why those two numbers? Because we're looking at, for the days that it rained, did they get it correct? That's what the C means here, or incorrect? So there were 34 total days. And we have 28 days that they got it correct out of 34 total days. This is a little bit of an odd graph, and maybe one of the most confusing problems on this homework. But if we do 28 divided by 34, we will get 82.3. Just to validate, 28 divided by 34 is 82.35, which rounds up to 82.4. Looking at this one right here, it rained and they got the forecast incorrect. Well, there were 34 days that it rained, and 6 days they got it incorrect. That is 6 out of 34, giving us 17.6, which is the percentage over here. This is the correct graph. Finally, is there any evidence of an association between the type of weather and their ability to forecast an accurate prediction? This would indicate a difference, but there's no true difference between these, so no, these do not show really any difference. And we'll get into statistical significance and actually how to analyze this later on. Right here we have blank evidence that the antidepressant is effective. Well, for this one, we're looking at the same sort of idea here. Is there a difference between the percentages? The relapse rate for the patients taking the antidepressant. So we have patients taking the antidepressant and 12 out of 52 relapsed. So let's see here. Let's move back over to the calculator. 12 out of 52 is 23.07. And it wants it to one decimal place, 23.1. So now we want to look at the relapse rate for the placebo, which was 10 out of 44, and 22.7. And luckily my percentages are extremely close right here. I usually tell people about 5 or 6 points is where I'd say there's a difference. There's no strict rules on this one, even though I wish there was. And later on we will talk about a chi-squared test for this one. But for now, we're just doing a visual inspection, and mine are very close. So there is no evidence for this one. This finishes up this homework. Make sure you know how to find percentages, and good luck.